as I was walking down the steps, I thought of my old buddy, Monsignor McGowan. Many of you probably remember Monsignor, and years ago, I was doing a breakfast meeting. It's actually down at the Radisson, and I said to him, "Do you have any advice?" And he thought for a minute, and he said, "Well, the best advice I can give you in doing a breakfast meeting is being a speaker at a breakfast meeting is like being the body in a good old Irish wake. You know, they can't have the party without you, but they don't expect you to say much." So we'll try to keep this as brief as I absolutely possibly can. This is actually an easy thing for me to do, because basically Maggie asked me if I could come and talk to you a little bit about volunteering and to thank you for everything that you've done. In our organization alone, our United Way can point to a little over 1,200 to 1,250 individuals in our community who actively volunteer just with our United Way. Through agencies, through allocations panels, through campaign work, through our children's programs, and through our energy programs and our tax program. We're just now wrapping up a tax program. Actually, Friday was our last day, where our volunteers did 2,200 tax returns for low-income and moderate individuals and seniors within our community. And it's all done by the work of volunteers. There's I think it's the nonprofit Times just did a study, and they put a value to the price of volunteering. And I shouldn't say this in front of Sheila, because she'll, oh my God, if we have to pay that. But an average volunteer, the value of an average volunteer is about $23.07 an hour. $23.07 an hour.
That's minimum wages, huh?
That's right. Minimum wages for volunteering. So if you look at everyone in this room and the hours that you've put in dedicated to Jewish Family Service, and you add that all up, you are getting into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, the value of your time and work that you've done in this community. And we, as nonprofits, couldn't do it without you. Our organization would not exist without volunteers. We have a staff of about 12 and a half people upstairs, and the amount of work that we do, for example, in the community, would just fall by the wayside if it wasn't for the volunteers. The reason I was a little bit late coming down here today is because as we speak, there's another meeting going on in our conference room with a group of volunteers who are working on some agency work. So what you're doing is so vital and important to individuals within this community that I can't thank you enough. I just wanted to tell you a little story about that would kind of underscore this. And I like to I've told this story a couple of times. A few years ago, I was asked to speak at this national conference that was in Detroit. And prior to the meeting, it was actually the night before, I had the opportunity to meet with my co-presenter. And my co-presenter was a gentleman by the name of Chris Gardner. Now, when you say the name Chris Gardner to most people, they kind of gloss over. This is just some other normal, regular guy. But if I mention the movie Pursuit of Happiness, which is a movie that was probably about 10 years ago, I think now, 10 years ago, starring Will Smith, and I think Will Smith won or was nominated for an Academy Award for this movie. Chris Gardner wrote the book Pursuit of Happiness, and the movie was about his life. And Chris is probably one of the most amazing men that I ever met, and to this day we still have an email friendship that we go back and forth. Chris was a homeless guy, and not only was he homeless, but he was caring for his then 4-year-old child. And Chris was in the San Francisco area. And basically what happened with Chris is that he would find himself at any given hour, especially the wee hours of the morning, locked in a lavatory in the subways of San Francisco. And that's where he slept. And that's how he took care of his 4-year-old son. Fast forward many years, Chris is now a multimillionaire. He has his own financial investment company. I think he kind of sold off the company, and he is now doing speaking all over the world, talking about his experiences as being homeless. So I said to him while we're sitting there having coffee, I said, Chris, I have to ask you the big question. Like, at the age of like 28, 29, what was going through your head when you were laying at 2 o'clock in the morning on the dirty floor of a lavatory in San Francisco with your 4-year-old son? And he kind of looked at me and he said, well, obviously, he said, the first thing I thought of is I've got to get out of this place. But he said, secondly, I didn't blame anybody for the position that I'm in. He said, I was the chauffeur of my own car. I drove myself here. And he said, I've got to figure out a way to drive myself back out. I hold the keys to the car, nobody else does. But he said, I can't do it alone. I couldn't do it alone. So during the course of his time, he said there were people in the community in the San Francisco area. He called them angels. And he said there was a volunteer at the soup kitchen that would always give him a little bit more because of his 4-year-old son. So there was volunteers at the homeless shelter that used to try to keep a room available for him because of his 4-year-old son. And interestingly enough, and I think I can tell this group the story, he said the biggest angels that he found were what he would call the ladies of the evening in the San Francisco Bay Area, when at 3 o'clock in the morning he was pushing his 4-year-old son in a stroller, and they would hand him $5 and $10 so that he can get some food for his son. He talked about the social worker that tried to help him get on his way, but most especially there was a gentleman. And this gentleman was an investment banker. And one day, Chris saw him coming out of a building, and he was getting into a beautiful car, and Chris stopped him and said, how do I get one of these? And he talked to this guy for a little bit, and the guy took him under his wing and mentored him. And the end of the story is that this guy helped him get his certification as an investment broker. And Chris started, I think it was New York Life, don't quote me on that. And then from there, went further and started his own investment company and excelled. And he ended the story by saying to me, after we were talking a little bit, he said, don't ever discount the smallest act of kindness. He said, we sit back sometimes in our world and we walk past the homeless guy who's on the street, or the poor woman who was maybe talking to herself with the bags and the baggage and the push cart, and we kind of put our blinders on and we walk past them. He said, you never know when the person on the bench with a little bit of help could be the guy who's going to solve cancer or find the cure for cancer, or the woman who's pushing the cart could be the next world leader or local leader, or possibly the next multi-millionaire investment banker, if they just receive a helping hand and a little bit of help. And that little bit of help doesn't have to be millions and hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars. It's just offering someone a hand to say, you know, what do you need and how can I help you? So what you are doing here today and throughout the course of the year is exactly that. You may not think it to be a great accomplishment, but it's huge in the life of the individual that you're helping. I see it every single day. I feel it every day, and I'm able to interact with a lot of the people that you're helping every day. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of the United Way, more importantly on behalf of the community and on behalf of all those you're helping. So keep it up. Thank you.